Brian. So, just kind of stalling until I finish off.
Go ahead.
But, what we're gonna do today is Bill is gonna talk, and maybe with his sidekick, about international foundations and, when you donate to international foundations, where the money goes, what happens to it, the projects we do, how it comes back to the local community, so on and so forth. So if you would welcome our own member, Bill, up. We have plenty of time, Bill. You don't have to rush or anything.
There's nobody here that needs to leave early.
Well, like I said, what the deal is you start in stack blocks down. That's when you get in trouble, but. You're good to go, my friend.
John, let me do an informal introduction of Bill because we've been working together on the World Community Service for 5 years.
Please.
Yeah, he's been representing, we got this consortium of all these clubs in Area 6. And each one of the clubs has one voting member that goes to a committee that decides what to do with our respective district DDF, the district designated funds. And Bill's been great. He knows how to play the game. And he's a critical thinker. We've done a lot of projects that had some technical issues. And Bill's always there to double think and make sure we're investing our money right. So it's been a great pleasure to have him on the committee, and he's representing you guys really well.
Well, thank you. As a character reference, I'm going to have to introduce you to my wife.
Well, then I'll have to tell the truth.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I want, okay, thank you. First of all, I think it's great that we've got these community projects, these local projects that are coming in. We've been, I think we've been dropping off on those, and Bob, I think it's great that you've got us cooked on some that are very worthwhile. So like that, but I would like to tell you also about our efforts of our international committee of local clubs and what we're doing on international projects. I'm talking specifically about global grants. That is ones where we involve funding coming from Rotary International as well as our own local funds. As this project shows, we have a number of categories, and I'll just give you how Rotary International presents it. The grant should be for promoting peace, fighting disease, promoting clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, for saving mothers and children, for supporting education, and for growing local economies. And that's what we've been doing. We sort of have recategorized in this way. Next slide, please. Here, these projects have to go through Rotary International and have to be at least $30,000 in size. So one of the things that requires is that we get money from the now 8 clubs in our area 6 to bring together to generate that kind of funding. Here's why I think they are effective programs, because unlike when you just contribute to a charity and the money goes away, we have a process this goes through. First of all, we identify good projects, either from other clubs coming in and presenting projects, or for ones that we find at some of the project fairs in foreign countries. Peter's been quite a traveler and has brought in quite a number of projects. Some other people who have been in countries who are in the committee and in other clubs have brought them in. That's the starting point. The projects are vetted and tracked, as it's not just throwing money into a pot. So every project must have an in-country Rotary club that sponsors it. That is somebody in Nigeria or Venezuela or wherever. So they're eyes on, and there's somebody responsible for it. As that says, we combine the funds from now 8 clubs to get enough money to meet the $30,000 barrier and make it an important project. The the local funds that we have come then from, are amplified by Rotary Internationally, actually are funds that we have previously contributed to RI. But the point is, we have sufficient funds to do a big program, tax exempt and so forth, but we know where the funds are going and what they're for. Then the final kicker is this one. If I can make this thing work, I guess not. The International insists on an audit of each project. So the local club has to produce an audit of where the funds went and what happened, or they don't get funds in the future. Next slide.
Monetary accountability.
Yes, sir. We've done projects. I want to give an overview, and I apologize to those of you who've been through some of these slides before. There's some newer members. So over the years, in the past, I don't know, 15 years or so, this shows you how many different areas we've been active in. I would say in the, maybe 2000 to 2012 period, we were particularly active in Africa.
It was working, yeah, I didn't see
The screen doesn't.
Yeah, no.
At any rate, in the last couple of years, we seem to be shifting towards Central and South America more with our program, which I think is good when we consider the influx of people we're getting. What's that?
The point.
That's okay. I'll,
And then look over the screen.
yeah,
That's great.
I don't understand that.
How light works.
So your internet connection is unstable. I'm glad your presenter is
Yeah.
unstable.
Yeah, right.
Got the three smartest guys over here. Get them figured out why that was.
So at any rate, we've done projects all over the world. The next slide, please. So I'm going to give you some illustrations, and as I say, some of you have been through this. This is a really neat project. I can't pronounce it. The Oranaski School Complex in Nigeria. And I'm gonna get my notes straight here, if I can.
Makes that really well.
This is in an area that's very remote. If you've ever seen the pictures of the wildebeest and so forth coming between Uganda and Tanzania, that's where this area is, out in the boonies. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong. This is Nigeria. This is the school complex where we have really crappy conditions, open sewer and so forth, with no clean water, no bathroom and bacteria.
No water at all
Yeah, no water
on
at all.
on the school complex.
The solution was wells and a complete new bathrooms. Give me the next one, please. Where this is Nigeria, the largest country by population in Africa. The sponsoring group is a suburb of Lagos down here, and I think the actual location is up in this area. Next slide, please. So here's what, ignore that one for something else. This is the kind of conditions we're talking about of people having, open sewers, no place to wash your hands. You'll notice this kid's kind of without clothing at all. Next slide, please. So here's what has been put in place by Rotary in place of that kind of condition. Bathrooms for boys and girls, as you can see, complete hand washing stations. And this is an interesting aspect of what Rotary is requiring. Now, when you do a project like this, you have to also include a program to teach the kids how to do hand washing. We never would have thought of that, but they don't know the necessity of washing their hands or how. This program, Peter, I don't think we had any problem getting someone for that. But one of the other ones was a little more difficult. At any rate, I think you can see the difference in scope with this one. So I think we can be very proud of that one. Next slide, please. This is a previous project earlier in the decade. People, again, in an area of Nigeria called Egbe, ran into two problems. About 5% of women, as you can see in Nigeria, die in childbirth because they don't know they've got a breech baby and that sort of thing. And at the same time, enlarged hearts are a very large problem for a reason I don't understand. But at any rate, our solution, next one, was to supply 3 sets of and defibrillators, supplying 3 at a time so that when one goes down, it could be sent back for repairs and so forth.
And the training, et cetera, that goes with that.
And the training that went with it, thank you. The process of getting that over there, sponsoring club through customs, Nigerian customs in Florida, in one big package that went straight to the hospital. So I thought that was
And your local fixer, yeah.
Yeah, the local picture. Thank you. Yeah, I thought that was a good project. Excellent, please. Now, we've done a lot of drinking project. This shows both in what I guess is southwestern Africa and southeastern Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, Uganda. Next slide. Most of them have consisted of hand wells of this kind. It's very popular in throughout Africa. I think they're out of Uganda. Is looking at putting one in South Sudan. The replacement parts are available and all that sort of thing within Africa. Now, to get up to the $30,000 limit, I think Peter really got imaginative on this project. As you see, wells in 3 different villages. And then look at the other inclusions, the water, the harvesting tanks, mosquito beds, heifers, piglets, and roosters, material for smokes and fruit trees, and of course, training. So, yeah.
Stupid question. Why 40 roosters?
Peter, any idea?
What was the
That's a
question?
good question. Why not hens?
I had 120 heads already.
They kill and eat the roosters. I guess is the only explanation I can have. But good question, and I don't know the answer.
They call those sort of a village project where you go into a village that just doesn't have anything and you provide a whole spectrum of good things.
No hens.
You need
Well-
you need the roosters to populate the hens because the heifers, like when you, I'm gonna take a guess at it, I don't know for sure, but when they do the heifers, it's to help provide milk for babies, right? And when you get the, I forgot the other thing you said that they do, but when they have the rooster, they can then give a rooster to someone else that has a hen, and then they can create more chicken. It just gets,
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
The birds and the bees.
yeah.
right.
So,
So you're not suggesting the roosters hook up with the heifers?
to show you what's really some of these. Well, you can see the big rig behind it. You can see the local Rotary group in front and the well drilling crew. And then there's sort of a familiar looking face back there. So, next slide, please. Now, we also keep this process going with a little bit larger than well, a generator over here that's driving it, pipe that's going up, pump system that allows them to pump during the night, for example, fill it up, and then have these watering stations. The lady who's got looks like one on the hip and one on the basket, filling up her water well over there, her water bucket, excuse me, from this sort of installation. Number of these installations. Peter, any idea how many you put in over there?
Well into the,
Who's Rotary flags? For those hanging out there.
yours,
Who else?
all of the clubs that supported that project, which were basically the clubs in areas where there was the host country Rotary Club, their flag is on there. So 6 of our flags and 1 of theirs.
And Peter may say the cider if he's gonna speak. Sure, I love it. I love it if you have people come with you.
Oh, yeah. Yep, like you always say. If you want to feel like a big fish, find a small pond.
Yeah.
We've done shifting from water projects to educational projects. We've done educational projects, as you can see here in the Philippines, Jamaica, that Ken's been on, and I'll show a little later. There a server and database I'll show in just a minute, and the sister school project between San Juan Bautista and Blackley. So here's one that I thought was a great project where we supported a church-run school that's way out in the boonies. If you've seen those processes, as I mentioned, of zebras and so forth, going back and forth, this is out in that area. No electricity available out there. So you'll see that if you look closely, there's rainwater supplied over there, solar panels to produce electricity for it. Our role is in supplying a connection system back there. A big server that sits here with all sorts of educational programs on it. This thing's called for some reason. Good project. I understand it's been very successful. Okay, thank you. Well, here, some shifting again to some of the social support program. Microloans in various places, and firemen's equipment and ambulance equipment to used ambulances. Here too that we've funded for microloans to women. One in again sponsored by Peter. I'm going to try it. Garbata South Club in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then microfinance loans were used for starting up new businesses or something?
Yes, thank you. For people who are unfamiliar with them, these are loans that may be $100 or something like that, up to maybe $500 that go to individual women to start businesses. They may buy a sewing machine. They may buy a cart to do lunches, carry around lunches. They may be a carrier service, that sort of thing. I've seen some that have started knickknacks, for tourists, to sell them to tourists. I don't know about these, but in Myanmar, I was told that they have cycled their loan 4 times. That is, the women pay back the loans and they can make it to new loans.
But the Bagada South loans, we're up 15 to 20 times recycled. They pay them off in about 6 months.
Oh, really?
And the repayment percentage is higher than any other loans that you would get
Yeah. Are they,
anywhere.
can they pay interest?
No, oh, yes, but it's minuscule compared to, and what really works is a, what do you call it? It's a social capital. You put up your own, if I default, what do I have to give back to, for them? They don't loan each individual person, they loan to 10 different ladies, and together, let's say $100 each. So there's $1,000 got to be repaid in 6 months. Everybody's got to pay back somehow, or they all default. And so every lady, to keep her standing in the group, has got to come up with something, and they solve this. If somebody's having trouble with their business, well, one of the other ladies has got to help them out.
Cheap building and a 70 there.
Yeah, that's the only thing they have.
We have 9 customers now, so then your business is successful.
This was a very earlier program where we supplied used hospital vans. Ken, did you drive that one down?
No, I will say this, so, I mean, Peter can tell the story, I mean, it's good to have an ambulance there and all that stuff. But then it came to a problem where, okay, the engine's diesel, now we need to find a diesel mechanic. So that's what you don't think about right away, but and he's from Mecca, and I asked him, this, like, everybody knows, I mean, some people know the story about me, I told you yesterday about the guy. Okay, so my friend Roberto, he was like almost in tears when he tells me about the ambulance that came and picked up his dad and saved his life because he needed an ambulance at his house in Mecca, and they drove him to the hospital using that ambulance. And he's like, if it wasn't for that ambulance, my dad would be dead. And you're like, oh, that is nuts, right? From Mountain View down to some small, you know, whatever. I don't even know how many people live there, 30,000.
50.
Yeah, it's like, it's cool. That's awesome.
And by the way, yes, it's a diesel engine. There is a member of the Rotary Club of America who is a diesel mechanic. And that's his way of contributing to the club. He's the guy that oversees, it's the Red Cross owns it. But then he has them fill out their regular maintenance schedule, the fluids, check the oil, tires, and so on. And he checks with them every 4 months or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we were down there, we all learned things. I mean, it was cool. We down at that station where they all were, that thing.
Same place.
Yeah.
Well, good, thanks for that, for talking about that. I just want to bring you up to date with some newer projects that are going on, and I'll list them and show them individually. First, the Trumbull bathrooms, bathrooms in an India slum, Belize solar powered power supply, water supply, and I want to make a distinction. These are our WTS, our Area 6 programs, but we also have the ability to directly participate as a club in programs that may be inappropriate or that are superseded by projects that the committee likes better. So what's the next one, for me, please? I have to explain a little bit about, or remind you of South American geography. You basically have a strip of a few hundred miles on the west coast that are level or rising. You've got the Andes, and then the majority of the continent is Amazon basin drainage area. And so this next project is one that is for school out in the jungle area, about 1,400 miles northeast of Lima, a tributary of the Amazon. Next, please. This is the way people get around out there. I'm not kidding. I've been there, and I've picked up, been on a boat like that picked up school kids where you couldn't see any civilization, and took them down about an hour and dumped them off into the reeds. It looked like I wouldn't let my kids do that for anything. But anyway, that's where it is on the Momine River. In a remote area. This was project of rebuilding the school auditorium and classroom area, I believe. Next slide. Here, putting in bathrooms, which they hadn't had, the men's room and the ladies' room, appropriately commemorating our contribution of the Rotary Club. Yeah, there's one thing I have to comment on. I travel in these third world countries. I love the safety procedures. Hard hat. Myanmar, I saw a guy on about a 6-story bamboo ladder, you know. Like this, no safety ropes, and the school will now have bathrooms and it doesn't leak out in the jungle. Next one, please. This is a kind of a grim project that this is a slum out from, as it shows, out from Delhi, where about 2,000 families live, and they have to go about 100 yards across 3 railroad lines, as you can see, to relieve themselves night or day. with the result that unfortunately you can see a 14-year-old girl was raped and strangled doing this. So we are funding community bathrooms over in the slum area, and are going to try and carry that forward into more individual bathrooms as an additional program. Next slide, please. I don't have a picture of this. This is Belize down in Central America, where we're basically cutting off the cost for a community water supply by supplying a solar panel system to drive pumps rather than paying $1,000 a month for electricity and allowing them to expand. Next up for me. This is one we're considering in Hermosia. I didn't realize that more people are born with club feet than with cleft palates. And as you can see, it's pretty gnarly. There's some, I don't know if we'll fund this or not, are able to be caught with a less intrusive process, but others require surgery and the braces. Okay, next slide. Now, in addition to the ones that we do with the global grants and through our own grant, we sometimes do projects directly. And this is one that was proposed by the Rotary Club of East Fresno. Was successfully done. And as you can see, they hit everybody but Mexico. They've got 5 California clubs, 2 Bolivian, 1 Canadian, and 1 Brazilian. I don't know how they missed Mexico on the way out, but anyway, that's how it's funded. Next slide, please. Again, I'll remind you of the topography that you've got the Great Mountain Chain on the western face and then the jungle. And Bolivia is particularly problematic because the main city is at about 12,000 feet. And Santa Cruz, that's the big agricultural area, is about 1,500 feet. And then in between, you've got a batch of roads, national parks, and agricultural areas at small towns. And that's what's occurred here. You see Santa Cruz over there is about 100 miles away from these agricultural villages. And they have one sort of centralized place that's shown here, supporting those clinics, but with no X-ray equipment. So the project was to provide X-ray capability that could be read by the doctors in Santa Cruz over here. So we provided funding for that one directly. Okay, next slide. How are they funded? This is too complicated, but in essence, we raise funds for our own Almaden, Willow Glen, Campbell endowment. So we have cash there. Contributions of any of us and all of us, I hope, will make to Rotary International, then go into a fund that is accessible to us later and that goes through the process we've talked about. I won't go through the rest of that. So if you flip that over, it looks this as a flow chart like this. We can contribute, our annual contributions go into the foundation. There's a 3-year holdback. They have a little administrative fee they charge, but then most of those funds are available to us 3 years later. We can match it with 50% of that. So the total funding then is close to 150% of what our club cash contribution is going out. And that's how we fund this. Any comment, Peter? You look like
Yeah, I've seen a whole bunch of these flow charts and none of them are easy to understand. But, and this is probably one of the easiest, but it's simply one concept that if you donate to the Rotary Foundation, they hold your money for 3 years and you get it back 2 ways. Half of it comes back to us right off, right at the top. And then the other half is available for these projects. And so you donate $100 now, you're going to see that $100 come back at us in one of these projects. 3 years from now.
And isn't the, I think the 2.5, just use it to kind of level off like what we do, like we, you know what I mean? I don't think they charge a 2.5% fee. I don't.
They don't charge us, no.
Anything, no. So I think that 2.5, I think that 97.5, I don't think they're collecting that as a fee, as far as I know, they're not. They do it, so it's for the market, so that we have a 2.5% up and down, we don't have to worry about, hey, we lost, we gotta pull out of corpus.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure about that, because I still know, I don't think they charge anything.
No, and back in 2008-9, when there was the dot-com bust, they couldn't invest their money. I mean, that's why they hold it for 3 years to invest in. But that wasn't paying off, and so the amount of funds made available to us was restricted hugely.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for the markets to come back.
Yeah.
Next slide for me, please. We have a lot of people who travel. Peter, we're showing up there. And I had to show this one because you will recognize somebody over in that one, down in, Jamaica.
That's Brad from the Morgan Hill Club.
A little bit thinner.
So
Brad's too, right?
That's Tamara.
Oh.
you are invited to travel on some of these, particularly the ones to Mexico and.
One time.
One time.
Yeah, it was invited one.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay. And the next slide, I think, and I should be about through. So my final comment is, we hope you will contribute to Rotary International as well as to the local funds. And if you've got ideas for projects, let me know so we can put it through the committee. And folks, the meetings are online now. So if you're interested, let me know and participate. Better yet, take my place on the committee.
No, don't do that. He's really good.
That's it. Questions?
Yeah. Does Rotary in these countries ever work with other clubs too to join together, or like the Peace Corps, or is it kind of stovepipe that it's just a Rotary project?
Uh,
Or just depends?
My impression is they do. Because, for example, the school I showed in Tanzania was built by a church, and we worked in connection with them.
So where there's teaming opportunities, I mean.
Exactly, yeah, and there are, in answer to your question, there are groups that provide the structure that's already there for us to project.
Well, I mean, I've seen, right, I don't know if you, I mean, I've seen videos where it's like a World Health Organization, they're doing a polio, their calculations.
Well,
And if they already have the infrastructure, they guys can come in and.
I'll tell you one right now that I wish I could have presented. In the Ukraine, there's a project to supply portable hospitals or portable clinics.
Yeah.
And that's, I've forgotten who's putting that on. Do you remember that?
It's in our district is supporting that.
Well,
So you
we're
can,
supporting it, but it's somebody else's program, basically.
ours,
Oh, is it ours? Okay.
our district, not yours and mine, but
Yeah.
our district.
When they're through there, those units go to Doctors Without Borders. So,
There's some TV there.
yes,
So if you want to volunteer for the projects, what is that experience like? How long is it? What do you need to contribute?
you contribute time to work with this committee. The projects, I would say, if you're following a particular project, probably, I don't know, a year and a half, something like
It
that.
typically takes a year to get a project all worked up, and then we have to apply to the Rotary Foundation for a grant, and that takes several months, so.
But is there, when I went, literally, I paid for an airline ticket and a $60 hotel at the doctor's place and time. So finance, yeah, it was 3 or 4 days.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, you go down there, I mean, we went out there to go hand out computers and the whole, and see the pick on the ground. So it's probably like 3 or 4 days. I mean, some have guaranteed if you go to Africa or whatever, it's gonna be a week because the flight's over and back and all that stuff. But it's just the cost of you to travel and then your time.
And how do we raise money for these projects?
Well, we raise them from among our members to contribute to Rotary International.
Do you have specific fundraising events for that?
We used to, we haven't recently.
Well, I mean, we just did the thing last year, the sportsman's dinner, or no, the other one, what's the endowment? Banker?
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, that was like
that
35 grand.
specifically for that one, but,
So
I'll address that, the Rotary Foundation, is essentially funded by the members of Rotary that donate, funds each year. So, many years ago, Paul Harris and his group, and that wasn't Paul Harris that actually, did the foundation, but, they ask each member to donate $100 a year to become a sustaining member of the, foundation. Well, we're talking about 100 years ago, so $100 a year, it was more like $1,000 a year is in today's world. We kind of still work under those same dollar amounts, so if you want to become a sustaining member, you donate $100 a year. If you want to become a double sustainer, they ask for $200 a year. If you want to become a Paul Harris Fellow, when you get to $1,000 mark, you are a Paul Harris Fellow. Some people do that, just they donate $1,000 a year. So as a club, we don't put any pressure on anybody to, go to $1,000 but we would like to see people be in the $100 minimum donation. And again, that's a donation. That's not a requirement. So, we have people that, have lost their jobs or whatever, and they still want to be involved in Rotary and they just can't do that. When you ask about, or someone asked about, other people don't. Polio Foundation or eradication of polio started with Rotary in 1986, I believe, or 1987. And it was like, we need to raise whatever the number of dollars was to eradicate polio from the entire world. Well, that number, of course, is now a billion times more than what it was. But if you donate $1,000 towards that specific project, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation matches that. So when people ask about, are there other people involved in this? They're in it for the whole deal, and we're down to Afghanistan and Pakistan are the only two countries that still have polio, wild polio, and the obvious reasons that we can't get those two countries done is because of the politics involved in it. And we've had members from both the countries themselves and volunteers that have actually been executed while trying to get this project actually completed, where there is no more polio in the world. And if you think about, it took 3 years to get there. That's an incredible feat, and it started in a Rotary club like ours. It actually started, I think, in Cupertino.
Philippines.
Question for you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
No.
So I should ask you a different way.
I was gonna suggest a fundraiser. My children went to a very, very small private school, and we had a fundraiser where we got everyone drunk. And we bidded on experiences. So like, there was a very rigid teacher that everyone was afraid of. And you could bid for your child to go skydiving with this person. To make the teacher go skydiving. So we raised over $80,000. So I would suggest a fundraiser like that.
Yeah.
And
And when I first joined
Stevens for $10,000.
When I first joined,
Yeah, exactly.
the and the district governor has say over what they do. But we had a raffle, and you could sell raffle tickets, for a vacation to someplace. There was a couple of different prizes. And the raffle tickets were like, $1 a piece, so most people sold, 10 or 25 at a time. And that money went specifically to foundation, for the bowling project. So, yes, absolutely, there has been in the past, there
Yeah.
needs to be, I don't know why.
Get with Bill and work on a fundraiser.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's a very good idea. Listen, I just wanted to give you some ideas of what these programs are internationally and what we are doing and how you could get involved. So thanks for that. Bill, thank you. Wrap this up. Have you got anything you'd like to add?
No. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to ring the bell, but before I do, I'm gonna remind you all that we have the charter party coming up 2 weeks from now on Saturday, the 6th of April. No, fifth. Sorry.
6th of July.
Today's Mayo.
6th of May. And we're gonna need a lot of help to put that together. You'll be getting emails, read them.
Yeah, you're gonna send it out today.
Please.
Is that Saturday or Friday or what's?
Saturday.
Saturday at the Horseman's, and it's will be